After 60, something undeniable just shifts in the physical body, doesn't it? I mean, if you're listening to this right now, you probably know exactly what I mean.
Oh, absolutely. It's a very real transition.
You start to notice that your sleep becomes, just a little bit lighter. The mind gets incredibly restless in the quiet of the night.
Right, that classic wired but tired feeling.
Exactly. And your muscles feel inexplicably tighter when you wake up. Plus, that dreaded 3 p.m. wall, it just hits so much harder than it used to.
It really is a universal biological reality. The architecture of the aging body, well, it starts demanding an entirely different kind of maintenance.
Yeah.
The cellular systems that used to just run flawlessly on autopilot, they simply need more precise structural support.
And usually, how do you handle it? I mean, because you care about your health, you probably have a very common morning ritual. You stand in your kitchen, you line up your supplements, maybe a high-dose vitamin D, a little calcium, a multivitamin.
Yep, the standard handful of pills.
Right. And you wash them down with a hot cup of black coffee. Honestly, you probably feel pretty proud of that routine. You're actively trying to do the right thing for your longevity.
It is absolutely the classic routine. But looking at this through a purely clinical lens, that handful of morning pills looks less like a timeless health strategy and a lot more like a massive traffic pileup in your bloodstream.
A traffic pileup. I love that description.
It's the absolute definition of a biological bottleneck. I mean, I see this constantly in my medical practice. You simply cannot throw a dump truck full of raw materials at a construction site and expect a house to, magically build itself.
No, of course not.
You desperately need a project manager.
Which is such a vital reframing.
Yeah.
As someone who spent decades teaching traditional Japanese ancestral wellness, I am naturally skeptical of, aggressive, isolated supplement routines.
Right. It's a very different paradigm.
It is. We're taught to look for the root of a practice, to seek out the natural, rhythmic way of living vibrantly. But when you showed me the cellular mechanisms you see every day in your medical clinic, it completely changed how I view the aging body.
Because when we merge that ancestral wisdom with a hard, Harvard-trained clinical perspective on the root causes of aging, well, we quickly realize something. Our modern approach to health completely ignores the body's natural architecture.
Which brings us to our exact mission for this deep dive. Today is a Guru Audit.
Yes, it is.
We are analyzing and comparing clinical insights from two major voices in the functional health space, Dr. Andrew Huberman and Dr. Mark Hyman.
Two very heavy hitters in the field.
Exactly. We're auditing their extensive research to extract the most useful, highly actionable blueprints specifically tailored for your aging body. And, if finding a calm, balanced approach to your health resonates with you, I highly encourage you to subscribe to our community. We're always exploring these timeless biological rhythms.
So, to map out this blueprint, we really have to start where both of these experts agree. The research insists we cannot even begin to talk about complex daily routines or vitamin D or bone density until we audit the foundational piece.
The project manager.
Exactly. The master project manager that powers the entire system, which is magnesium. Based on the clinical evidence, without it, almost everything else you're doing in that morning routine is basically useless.
I have to admit, that was wild to me at first. I mean, in my family's heritage, a nutrient-dense diet was just a natural, effortless part of daily life. A century ago, a magnesium deficiency was incredibly rare.
Right, because of the diet.
Yeah, we got it from sea vegetables, from rich bone broths, from whole foods. So why do the nutritional analyses we're auditing today argue that even if you eat a massive, beautiful plate of fresh organic spinach, it's still failing you?
This is exactly where Dr. Mark Hyman emphasizes that our modern environment is actively working against us. It comes down to agricultural reality.
The farming practice.
Yeah. Modern industrial farming has fundamentally stripped our dirt of its vital minerals. Commercial farmers utilize fertilizers that only replenish nitrogen, phosphorus, and potassium.
Right, just the compounds needed to make the crops grow incredibly fast and, look big and green for the supermarket shelf.
Precisely.
Yeah.
They completely ignore the trace minerals because they don't affect the visual yield. So the roots of that spinach plant simply cannot pull up magnesium that no longer exists in the dirt.
Wow.
You're eating a vegetable that looks exactly the same as what your grandparents ate, but biologically, it has a fraction of the structural integrity.
So you could be doing everything right, eating a perfectly healthy, plant-rich diet, but because of modern farming, your cells are literally starving for this foundational mineral.
Yes. And to make matters worse, we aren't just taking in less, we're burning through it at an unprecedented rate. Dr. Hyman points out that our modern lifestyle is aggressively hostile to magnesium storage.
Because of stress, right?
Chronic stress is the biggest driver, absolutely. But it's also daily caffeine, alcohol, processed foods, and incredibly common medications like diuretics and proton pump inhibitors for acid reflux.
Oh, those are so common.
Very common. And they actively flush whatever precious magnesium you do have right out of your kidneys.
But here's what I think confuses so many of my clients. If you go to your doctor feeling deeply fatigued or anxious, and you get a standard blood test, your magnesium levels almost always come back completely normal.
Oh, almost every time.
So are these sources suggesting the standard medical tests are missing the actual problem?
They are entirely missing it. It's a well-known flaw in conventional diagnostics. Less than 1% of your body's total magnesium is actually kept in the blood.
Less than 1%. Wait, where is the rest of it hiding?
The vast majority is locked away deep in a biological vault, your bones and your tissues. Your body works desperately to keep that 1% in the blood perfectly stable.
Why is the blood level so heavily guarded?
Because magnesium controls the electrical pacing of your heart. If your blood magnesium drops even a fraction, your heart literally stops beating.
Oh, wow. Okay, so let me make sure I'm visualizing this correctly. Checking your standard blood panel for magnesium is like looking in your wallet to see if you're wealthy, while completely ignoring the fact that your life savings vault is totally empty.
That is the perfect way to look at it.
Yeah.
And the dark reality is that your body will actively rob that vault, pulling minerals directly out of your bones and tissues, just to keep a few dollars in the blood wallet so your heart keeps beating.
That's terrifying.
Millions of adults suffer from this hidden cellular deficiency, despite getting a clean bill of health on their annual blood work.
And when that vault is empty and then life happens because, life is stressful, you get caught in this vicious, exhausting cycle.
Completely draining cycle, yeah.
When you experience stress, your body naturally produces a surge of cortisol and adrenaline. It prepares you for fight or flight. But processing and clearing those exact stress hormones out of your system literally consumes your remaining magnesium.
It burns right through it. And because your magnesium is now depleted, your nervous system loses its physical ability to calm itself down after the stressful event has passed.
It's like you can't switch it off.
Exactly. Which leads us directly to Dr. Andrew Huberman's explanations of the neurochemistry behind that terrible wired but tired feeling.
Oh, if you're listening to this and you've ever laid in bed at 2 a.m. feeling physically exhausted, but your brain is obsessively reviewing a conversation you had 10 years ago, or worrying about tomorrow's to-do list.
You know exactly what we were talking about.
Yeah, you really do.
You're stuck in neurological overdrive. Dr. Huberman explains what's happening at the cellular level through your neurotransmitters. Think of a chemical called glutamate as the gas pedal in your brain, and another called GABA as the brakes.
Okay, glutamate is gas, GABA is brakes.
Right. Magnesium is the literal physical mechanism that blocks glutamate from constantly firing. Without it there to run interference, your foot is permanently mashed on the gas pedal.
Your nervous system is constantly firing without any brakes at all, which is why, from an ancestral perspective, the solution isn't to force the body into submission with, heavy pharmaceutical sedatives.
No, that just masks the issue.
Exactly. It's to provide gentle biological support to help the nervous system naturally slow down and reduce that stimulation. By the way, if you are finding this breakdown of the body's hidden mechanism helpful, take a second to turn on your notifications so you never miss one of these deep dives.
Providing that gentle support is absolutely crucial because the tension from a depleted nervous system doesn't just stay isolated in your brain, it cascades down into your body's entire physical energy grid.
Into the cells themselves.
Yes. Inside your cells, your energy currency is a molecule called ATP. It's produced by the mitochondria. But here is the root cause of so much aging fatigue. ATP cannot be synthesized, nor can it be utilized by your cells without a molecule of magnesium binding to it first.
So if you lack this master mineral, your cells simply cannot efficiently convert the food you eat into usable energy.
They literally can't.
That beautifully explains the severe physical fatigue, the heavy limbs, and the brain fog you feel in your 60s.
It does. And it also explains the physical muscle tension. When we look at the biology behind muscle movement, it's a constant cellular tug of war. Calcium binds to your muscle fibers to cause them to contract and tighten.
Okay, so calcium makes things tight.
Right, and magnesium acts as the bouncer. It physically pushes the calcium back out of the muscle cells to allow them to finally relax.
So without the bouncer, the calcium just floods the muscle cells and stays there.
It never leaves.
Wow. So your muscles remain locked in a contracted state. That's exactly why you get restless legs at night, or sudden calf cramps, or even that tight jaw tension that gives you headaches. It's a literal cellular inability to relax.
And that exact same lack of a bouncer doesn't just ruin your sleep and lock up your calves. It actually creates massive metabolic chaos while you are awake.
Oh, this is the metabolism piece?
Yes, and this completely reframes the guilt so many adults feel around their diet. If you've ever hit that 3 p.m. wall where you feel absolutely desperate for a pastry or a candy bar, Dr. Hyman's functional medicine perspective suggests that is not a failure of your willpower.
Not at all. It's a mechanical failure. Let's look at the mechanics of blood sugar. Magnesium is the literal key that allows insulin to unlock your cells and deposit glucose for fuel.
Exactly. You eat a carbohydrate, it breaks down into glucose, and your pancreas releases insulin to usher that glucose into your cells. But without magnesium physically present at the cellular receptor,
The door simply will not open.
it stays locked.
Think about the tragic irony of this for a moment. Your bloodstream is overloaded with sugar. But because the cellular doors are locked, your actual cells are starving to death.
It's a physiological panic state.
Yeah, your brain panics. It thinks you are completely out of fuel, so it sends out powerful, primitive signals demanding you eat more sugar immediately. You reach for quick fuel, spike your blood sugar again, and perpetuate the entire exhausting cycle.
This hidden dynamic leads directly to insulin resistance. And when you combine that cellular starvation with the high cortisol from the stress cycle we just discussed, the aging body defaults to a very specific, deeply ingrained survival mechanism.
Storing fat.
Yes, it stores that excess circulating energy as visceral fat, specifically deep belly fat.
And over time, the loss of that magnesium buffer leads directly to endothelial inflammation. The delicate, microscopic lining of your blood vessels takes a severe beating from the high blood sugar, leading to arterial stiffness.
So if magnesium is our foundational tool for calming the nervous system, stopping the cravings, and allowing the muscles to relax well, how do these experts suggest we actually deploy it?
Right. What's the action plan?
Because Dr. Huberman's research gets very specific about protocols, especially when it comes to engineering a gentle, rooted recovery during sleep.
And to break this metabolic and neurological stress cycle, the protocol absolutely must start at night. In traditional Japanese practices, the evening is fiercely protected for gentle recovery.
Winding down completely.
Yes, the lights go down, the temperature drops, the stimulation stops. But Dr. Huberman explains a highly strategic clinical sleep stack designed to work harmoniously with your neurochemistry.
Looking at his research, Huberman highlights the strategy of using specific, targeted dosing of single-ingredient formulations over those generic, pre-mixed sleep blends.
Because you can control it better.
Exactly. It allows you to adjust your routine without throwing everything off. He recommends exactly 145 milligrams of magnesium L-threonate, along with 50 milligrams of apigenin and 100 to 400 milligrams of L-theanine.
Okay, I have to push back here. As someone who advocates for ancestral routines, my immediate instinct is to ask, why should my listeners over 60 start swallowing 3 different isolated compounds in plastic bottles to wind down?
It sounds like a lot of pills.
It does. In my heritage, we never relied on a stack of pills. We brewed a warm cup of green tea or chamomile. Isn't this just replacing a pharmaceutical sleeping pill with a massive supplement stack?
It is a completely valid question. And the irony is, those ancestral traditions are exactly where these compounds come from. Apigenin is literally the active calming compound extracted from chamomile.
Oh, really?
Yeah. And L-theanine is the amino acid found naturally in green tea that promotes wakeful relaxation.
So why not just drink the tea?
Because of the depletion we talked about earlier. By the time we reach our 60s in the modern, high-stress, mineral-depleted world, a cup of tea often just isn't enough to overpower a nervous system that has been stuck in overdrive for decades.
We need the concentrated dose to catch up.
We need the clinical dose, exactly, especially with the magnesium L-threonate. It's unique because its specific molecular structure allows it to effectively cross the blood-brain barrier.
So it goes right into the brain tissue.
Right. While other forms of magnesium work on your physical muscle tension, the threonate form gets directly into the brain to calm those excitatory glutamate receptors we talked about. It physically takes the foot off the gas pedal.
That makes a lot of sense. What stands out to me here, translating this back to an ancestral routine, is the profound contrast with traditional over-the-counter sleep aids.
They're entirely different mechanisms.
They are. So many people take a sleeping pill, essentially get knocked unconscious, and wake up with a terrible chemical hangover. This stack doesn't do that at all.
No. It just shifts the nervous system state.
Right. Taking these amino acids and minerals 1 to 2 hours before bed simply activates your parasympathetic nervous system, your rest and digest mode. It doesn't drug you, it just gives your brain the raw materials to naturally flip its own off switch.
Exactly. It restores the natural architecture. But if magnesium is acting as our nighttime repair crew, acting as the bouncer, clearing out the tension, and calming the brain, it brings us to a critical physiological question.
What's that?
What is that calcium doing during the day? Because so many of my older patients take massive doses of vitamin D3 and calcium with their morning coffee, thinking they're protecting their bones.
Right. Let's talk about the morning routine. Because the plot twist here is that vitamin D3 and vitamin K2 completely rely on the magnesium we just spent all this time discussing.
They absolutely do.
Yeah.
One of the hundreds of enzymatic reactions magnesium is directly responsible for is converting vitamin D3 into its active, usable biological form called calcitriol.
So without magnesium,
If your magnesium vault is empty, your body cannot activate the D3 at all. It just floats there. But assuming you have enough magnesium to activate it, we have to look at what D3 actually does.
it acts as a calcium vacuum in your gut. It aggressively pulls calcium from the food you eat or the supplements you take and moves it directly into your bloodstream.
Exactly.
But here is the warning for anyone taking a high winter dose. Taking D3 alone gives your body building materials, but absolutely no project manager.
That is the profound clinical danger. D3 pulls the calcium in, but it has no inherent GPS system. It has no idea where to put the calcium.
So where does it go?
Without proper direction, that calcium just dumps into your arteries, your joints, and your soft tissues. In my clinical experience, I've seen the devastating results of this. You are essentially calcifying your own blood vessels, causing severe arterial plaque and cardiovascular stiffness.
You're actively giving yourself a traffic jam of calcium. And that is exactly where vitamin K2 enters the picture, specifically the MK7 form, which acts as the crucial GPS system.
Yes, the biology behind K2 is absolutely fascinating. It activates two very specific proteins in your body, osteocalcin and matrix GLA protein, or MGP.
Oh wait, let me slow you down to make sure I'm visualizing this. D3 acts as a vacuum, pulling the calcium into the blood, but K2 activates these sweeper proteins to direct the traffic.
That's a great analogy, yes.
So how does it actually force it into the bone?
Think of MGP and osteocalcin as magnetic street sweepers. Once they're activated by the K2, they actively circulate, bind to the rogue calcium floating in your bloodstream, pull it physically out of your delicate arterial walls, and force it into the dense bone matrix where it actually belongs.
That's amazing.
And the research highlights the MK7 form of K2 specifically because it has a longer half-life, meaning it stays active in your body much longer to keep sweeping the arteries clear.
So let's translate this massive amount of science into a simple ancestral daily rhythm. D3 and K2 are fat-soluble vitamins.
Right, which means they need dietary fat.
Exactly. Taking them on an empty stomach with a cup of black coffee completely ruins their absorption. They must be taken in the morning, which perfectly aligns with your natural circadian sunlight signals alongside healthy dietary fats. Think half an avocado, some olive oil, pasture-raised eggs, or wild-caught salmon.
Let's summarize this entire synthesized blueprint from our Guru Audit so it's perfectly clear for everyone listening.
First, your morning rhythm. You step outside to get natural sun exposure in your eyes, and you take your D3 and K2 alongside healthy fats.
A perfect start to the day.
This signals to your body that the day has begun, builds strong bones, and keeps your arteries clear of calcium buildup.
Then, your evening rhythm.
Yeah.
You utilize the magnesium threonate, apigenin, and L-theanine stack about an hour before bed.
The parasympathetic shift.
Yes. This actively calms the nervous system, clears out the physical muscle tension, and generates the ATP cellular energy you will desperately need for tomorrow.
It's such a beautiful, holistic reminder that supplements are exactly that, supplemental. You cannot out-supplement a fundamental disconnect from nature.
No, you really can't.
True health is about balance. It's a sun-drenched walk, real whole foods, proper hydration, and slowing down. It's about steady, gentle, daily rhythms, not chaotic, aggressive megadosing.
Well said. But before we wrap up this deep dive, I want to leave you with one final provocative thought from the source material to mull over today. We established earlier that your body aggressively burns through its magnesium stores just to process the stress hormone cortisol.
Right. The fight-or-flight response literally depletes our mineral vault.
Now, consider our modern digital habits. The constant smartphone pings, the endless doom scrolling through the news.
Oh, the 9 p.m. work emails?
Exactly. Your primitive brain does not know the difference between a physical predator and a stressful email. It registers all of those digital micro-interruptions as genuine, life-threatening threats.
Which triggers a microdose of cortisol every single time the screen lights up.
Which directly burns your magnesium. I want you to seriously consider if you are experiencing a technologically induced nutritional deficiency simply from your daily screen time.
A technologically induced nutritional deficiency. Wow.
It's a profound realization that your seemingly harmless digital habits might literally be draining your body's physical architecture from the inside out.
Something to think deeply about the next time your phone buzzes in your pocket and you feel that little familiar spike of tension in your chest. Thank you for joining us on this audit. Stay vibrant.